Hi everyone, I'm Zoe and welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to share news that I think this bookshelf behind me is actually just a decoration piece because I keep on buying books, but I don't read them unless a famous person or a person that I like recommends it to me. It happens with Where the Crawdad Sings, and now it happens with the book that I'm going to share today, Sorrow and Bliss. I am actually quite mad at myself because as an uncultured person, I do judge a book by its cover, and because I have a really big bias towards yellow things, and this book is yellow, that's why I bought it. And you can see it's evident in my clothes, it's evident in my water bottle, it's evident in like basically everything I own. So I bought this book and it has been on my shelves for over 3 months and I didn't touch it. And after I read it, and I was like, oh my god, it's so good. So I really do need to discipline myself to read the books I buy, So let's talk about the man, Jack Edwards. He's my favorite booktuber of all time now, and he recommended this book in a video he released recently about the 5 best books he's read in 2022. I'll put the video link in the description below if you want to watch that. And he gave this book a 5 stars, and when I saw it, I was like, it looked really familiar, and I checked my bookshelf and there it is, sitting there looking sad and saying, read me please, read me please. But yeah, I'll tell you more about this book later. But yeah, Jack Edwards, I started watching him last May when I was like working on my project and I just want to put something in the background, like listening to something about uni, about books, and bless the YouTube algorithm, they recommended Jack to me, and I just couldn't stop listening and watching the video instead of doing my project. And I finished all his videos, like all his videos, before I even finished the project. And I remember leaving a comment in Jack's videos and saying, oh Jack, your content is amazing, please please continue to make like these kind of amazing content. I've been looping all your content and I need new content, and I've never been so desperate for new content before. So I just really love Jack's taste in books, and his humor and his personality is so bubbly, and he's so positive, and he's so fun as well, and he has actually immaculate taste. He's like uni slash study tuber, but then he graduated and transitioned into a booktuber, and I think he did a video about Kendall Jenner, and it blew up, and then he became such a big YouTuber now, which I'm so proud of. So I've actually watched a lot of his videos, but I actually haven't read a book that he has recommended, because most of the times I watch a video because I really like just watching his videos. But this time I think this is the first book I actually read because of his recommendation, and it's so good. It's so good. Like from now on, mark my words, whatever Jack recommends, I'm gonna devour it. I'm gonna read it, because I'm just so mad at myself I didn't listen in the first place. I didn't read this, and it's so good. So Jack, if you're watching, which I know you won't be, I really do love your videos, and please produce more content so I can continue to devour it. Okay, no more fangirling. Okay, stop. So about this book, it actually blew my mind away. It's actually such an amazing book. But it's been a really long time since I've encountered a book that I couldn't put down. I think the most recent one was The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and I really couldn't put it down. I was on a trip, and you're supposed to be looking at icons or trademarks of a place, but I just sat down and read the book, and this is the second time I've encountered a book like that. I actually stayed up all night trying to finish the book because it's just like so good I couldn't put it down. And this is one of the books that actually made me like ugly sob, ugly cry. You know, sometimes when you read books like, okay, the Song of Achilles was just like really sad, and like you've seen a lot of TikTokers or booktubers talking about, oh, how this book make them cry. So now I was reading that, and you kind of like force yourself to cry a little bit, but like it just doesn't work on me. It's just like the book is sad, but it just doesn't make me to the point that I want to cry. But this book is just like the tears are coming, like tears, snot, saliva, everything just came out. Like I couldn't control it, and it's that good. So a little background information about the author, which is Meg Mason. So she's an Australian writer, and she has worked in the Financial Times, Vogue, Marie Claire, etc. And her debut novel was in 2017. It's called You Be Mother, and this book, Sorrow and Bliss, was published in 2020. And this book is so good. It's actually shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2022. It's a shame that she didn't win because I think it's a really amazing book, and I'm just looking forward to reading the ones that actually did win, because if the ones that didn't win actually has like such good quality writing, I really have really high expectations for the ones that actually did win. So about this book is about a girl named Martha, and she has a really nice job. She has a husband who loves her, but she still feels very unhappy. And reading the synopsis of this book, it actually makes me feel like I'm reading the Bell Jar vibes. And then, so Martha in this book then goes on to recall the events that happened in her childhood and tries to figure out what went wrong in her life to make her feel this unhappy. So my emotions while reading this book was a big roller coaster, especially at the beginning, because without any context of what's happening to Martha, I just absolutely hated her. She was just so mean to everyone deliberately, like everyone owed her something. And as the book dove deeper into what's happening in her childhood and the events that happened then, we get to see her mother despising her, and then her parents having this strained relationship and careers that actually didn't earn any money. And then Martha started falling ill, and then she has all these depressing thoughts. The only light of her life was her sister called Ingrid, who made hilarious jokes, and I literally like laughed out loud at them. It was so funny. Then what goes on is Martha hating herself, loathing herself, and thinking why the medicine she took didn't work at all. And then there's this failed marriage of her with a narcissist who try to convince Martha that they should have kids together even though she didn't want any. But then there's Patrick, who came into her life, which is her cousin's friends, and in the end they ended up together. But then you see Martha being this absolute prick to him, despite Patrick being so nice to her and making every effort to try and make her happy. There were a few moments in this book that struck me the most. So the first was about mental illness, the second was about babies, and the third one was about love. So these are the things that I do not have ongoing in my life at the moment, but the way that Meg wrote about it is just so amazingly relatable that I feel like I'm going through all these things with Martha, all these emotions, whether it be positive or devastating or depressing. So this book is written in first person perspective, so we see things through Martha's eyes, and as the book goes on you kind of justify her behavior because she's sick, but she sees herself as this victim to the illness and she lashes out at everyone. And then it was revealed later that her sickness was wrongly diagnosed, which aggravated her behavior towards people around her to the point that they can't take it anymore. Throughout the chapters, you see her struggles, her thoughts, her helplessness, people around her, and her life as well. And it's very emotional for the reader because you can sense how desperate she is and you want to help her, but you can't. And I think this sums up having like a mental illness, because you want to help people, you want to help them, but it's all happening inside their head and you can't help them but just, be there for them. And it's also very hard for the person who's going through all this as well, because I think the character wants to be normal and wants to be like a normal person, have a normal life, but all these treatments, all this medication and people treating her differently just makes her feel less of a person. It's a very realistic depiction of what going through an illness or a mental illness is like, and especially in the end when we find out that all this is happening, like all this sickness and things, or why the medicine is not working, why she feels like she's doing worse and worse, is actually due to a wrong diagnosis. It just makes you feel so much more frustrated because you feel like all these years she has been suffering, and it's because of like a wrong diagnosis. This book actually revolves a lot around womanhood and being a mother as well. So for the majority of the book, Martha expresses this immense feeling of not wanting any children. But even when she got like pregnant, she went to get an abortion, and in the end it's revealed that she actually adored the idea of having children, and the notion of being childless was actually subconsciously imposed on her by the doctors, saying that her medication she's taking for her disease will impact the fetus, when they're actually trying to convey the idea that a person ill like Martha is not fit to be a mother. And this part hit very strongly because it's not only to do with babies, but the idea of wanting something or not wanting something most of the times is actually, impacted by people around us, or impacted by, people we encounter with at a very young age, and we may be brainwashed by concepts that they think are right, or just, ideas that they tell us, and it may be years later that we realize, oh, that's not what I want, like we ourselves want. And so, like Martha, when she realized that she indeed wanted children, she was already over 40, so it's very hard for her to get pregnant again, and it really devastated her a lot. So while the mental illness took a lot away from Martha, the people around her, like though maybe acting out of love, did harm her a lot too. The third part about love is what made me ugly cry so much when I was reading it, like going through it like in the middle parts, and I was just like all the tears and everything just coming so naturally, and I just don't know what happened. And then I just texted my mom and said, oh, I'm so sad, I'm reading this book. And then like later on, after I finished the book, and then she called me, like it was FaceTime, and then she asked me, oh, what's this book about? And then when I was telling her what the book was about, and then like it triggered me again, and I just kept on crying and crying, and then it's just so embarrassing, and then like there's snot and there's not saliva, but like tears and everything. But this is also evidence of like why this book is actually so good, because like we're calling it, you get, like you feel it again, the emotions again, it just makes you cry again. So when we encounter patients, whether they have like mental illness or physical illness, sympathy usually comes pretty naturally. But what we fail to, take into account is that people around them, people who take care of them also suffers a lot. So it is written in this book that Martha sees herself as this victim because of her illness, and it's starting to get to the point where people can't really handle her anymore, and she just looks back in her life to see what's going on, like what went wrong, and we see that she's starting to realize that people around her continue to take care of her despite her being a prick to them, and like her not respecting them, her not appreciating them at all, and her being like such a pain in the ass at times. But the people around her still loves her for who she is, and still supports her, and still tries to make like every effort to make her happy. But she just lashed out at them, and that just made me like ugly cry so much. And it just makes me feel like how love, like from her family or from her husband, is just so unconditional. And not that I can relate to the mental illness part, but I think the part that's relatable for me is that sometimes we see ourselves as the misfortunate ones when we like encounter something that's unjust or unfair, and we lashed out at people who loves us and who takes care of us, but they don't deserve any of that, but we take it out on them, or we think that everyone should alter the way for us. And I just feel so bad, and I think it's how this book managed to make me feel like I feel so bad for the people around me. It's just such top notch. And I'm telling you, like I've never seen a love as pure as the love between Patrick and Martha. It's just, you may think the most romantic thing, or like love is like, oh, Twilight, oh, Romeo and Juliet, or like Jack and Rose on the Titanic. But I'm telling you, nah, that's just like movies or books telling you that, oh, love is like this, love is like that, love is like that, oh, it should be very dramatic, it should be very romantic. But how Patrick here is Martha's husband, and when she has like breakdowns. She's going through her mental illness, and then she would be like throwing things around and like getting really emotional, or like being sarcastic on her husband, or you know, saying things in a really degrading way or condescending way to him, but he's taking it all in without lashing out at her, and he still takes care of her. You know, when she's having a breakdown on the toilet and she calls her, like he would always pick up and tries to make her feel better. And when it's her birthday, he would want to make a birthday party, like he would try to make every effort to make her happy. But like Martha never appreciated that until like the very end, and that just made me like cry so much, because this is what like true love really is, you know, like him loving her like behind the scenes, you know, and you know, not throwing it in her face or not requesting anything in return, and him loving her despite her having this illness, and it makes her really sick and really emotional, and you know, just not being the best form of herself, and despite all that, he just loves her. It's just like, if my like future partner is not like Patrick, nope. Like, this is just impossible to me. It's just like such a rare form, such a true form of love. So this book was an absolutely mind-blowing piece, and I would definitely recommend you to read it. And I gave it like a 5 stars. I really wanted to give it like a 6-star review, but you know, I can't. And I would definitely recommend you to read it, but it might be triggering for some because it shows the struggles or thoughts of a person going through mental illness. And I'm so glad Jack recommended it to me, or else it would just be sitting on my shelf behind me and I would have missed out on such a brilliant piece of literature. So this is the end of the video, and also like a book review of Sorrow and Bliss, and also a book recommended by Jack. And if you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!